and welcome back to Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Euler. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Today, Dr. Ann Gillies and Yvette Neri are here. They're on the show to present, well, a lot of information, all to grandparents. How are grandparents being affected by the trans movement? We're going to get into it right after these.
Join Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Euler as he hosts Unmasking the Trans Movement's next webinar, where we connect you with the clinical professionals who provide understanding on the many topics that make up this disturbing ideology and answer any questions you may have. Protecting the most vulnerable, women and children. Unmasking the Trans Movement. For more info on guests, dates, times, and pricing, see us online at unmaskingthetransmovement.com.
Welcome back. Today, John Euler, Dr. Ann Gillies, and Yvette Neri are going to get deep into how grandparents are being affected by grandchildren who are turning trans. Not only the grandchildren, but the parents also pushing this evil ideology as well. What you can do, how you can get through it, that is what today's episode is all about. Let's bring in our experts. John, thank you very much for being here today. You've got a great panel with you with Dr. Ann here and Yvette. Why don't I let you take it from here and give a little background on what Yvette Neri's been doing.
Brad, thank you as always. And Yvette, thank you so much for being here with us. Dr. Ann Gillies, welcome back. You are a world traveler. You're on book tour. Even as we speak, you're talking to us from a hotel doing conference. Yvette, we are so appreciative. Dr. Ann Gillies, this is close to your heart. You have a passion and compassion for grandparents. Talk about being stuck in the middle. And Yvette is a grandparent, and that's what we're here to talk about. What's a grandparent to do?
Absolutely. Thanks, John. And Yvette, thank you for coming on today, because we really need to talk to grandparents, and we need to talk about what's being done to them. This isn't something that they ever expected that they would ever have to handle. In fact, 10 years ago, most of us, even if we weren't grandparents, weren't even considering something like this on our horizon. And as you know, it's breaking families apart. So Yvette, you're going to tell us a little bit about what got you interested in all of these things in the cross-sex identifying group, the transitioners as they're called, and why you have become an advocate for the children, an activist to get word out, and where you see that really, really benefiting. So that's a few things there, but let's start with what got you engaged in the first place.
What got me engaged in the first place was in 2003. That was my first year working at the Michigan Women's Music Festival, which was a large women's music festival. And that was for women only. And so when I arrived the first year, we were already being challenged by trans-identified men who thought that they belonged, because it's a women's festival, that they belonged there too. And we just essentially said no. I mean, it was politically done much better, but the bottom line was no. And so This is 20 years ago.
Right?
This is 20 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
The word TERF didn't exist yet, but they did call us trans exclusionary radical feminists. And the pushback got worse and worse because I was there 10 years. And it got worse and worse. And in the last years I was there, like, people were sneaking in and vandalizing electrical equipment and damaging the property of the festival. Like, this is supposed to make us think, yeah, come on in. I know musicians were harassed. They were deplatformed at other places that they might be performing because they were performing at Michigan. And at least one vendor was seriously harassed for making a shirt that said women born women.
Oh, yeah.
So it was on my radar there. I was aware of this movement to for trans-identified men to insert themselves in women's spaces. There are other women's music festivals that were trans-inclusive. Ours was the only one that wasn't. So, why us? But then down the road, what brought me to really start learning what is happening today with this is in 2017, I saw a meme on Facebook that said something about chicks with dicks, get over it. And I thought, oh, hell no. So I followed the source of the meme and I found more memes like that. And I discovered the concept of the cotton ceiling, which is a term coined by a trans woman in Canada. And I think she's also a porn star, or he's a porn star.
See, there you go,
And,
Yvette, right?
yes.
These terms. So let's stick with, just so we can be biologically accurate. Feel free on this, on our show here, we'll use the biologically accurate. If anybody doesn't like it, you know what, take it up with the creator. So
right.
So
right. Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, yes, just shy of that. Thank you. Fourth member of the Trinity. Okay.
Yeah, but what the cotton ceiling is he was saying that sleeping with lesbians was like the goal to prove your womanhood. So the cotton ceiling is lesbians' underwear. And I was done. Like,
good for you. You should be done. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I got active on Twitter. And so I found out, what are people saying? And I was really surprised at the language, how people were talking about identities and just the whole transgender narrative. And so I had a lot of conversations so I could figure out how the language and the thinking worked. And then the farther I got into it, the more warped it seemed. And it wasn't helping people cope better. It was leading people to be more fragile. And
You're
then,
absolutely.
of course, I'm also seeing about children. And I was learning about puberty blockers and all of that. And then a couple of years ago, I have my grandson then was about 9, and he's autistic. He's cognitively delayed, and thinks he's a girl because he likes pink and glitter.
Yeah.
And girls' clothing. And his mother had posted on social media that anyone who did not affirm him as a girl can just stay away from them. So I'm horrified because I already know all about this. I know that autism is highly correlated with trans identity in children. And I tried, I asked him about it when he was 9. I said, well, what makes someone a girl? And he says, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, your mom's a girl. Yes. What makes her a girl? Oh, she likes to wear makeup and dresses, and she likes to sew. And I said, well, I'm a girl. Yes. I hate wearing dresses. I never wear makeup. What makes me a girl? I don't know. And he wasn't even curious. He is a super curious little boy.
So this is approximately
9.
grade 4th grade.
Yep.
And one of the things, Yvette, that I was talking about on the weekend is that there's a recent study out that says that almost all of these children are on the autism spectrum. I had previous studies had shown, around 26 to 30%. And now they're saying almost all of these children are on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
They're either diagnosed already or will be diagnosed. This is a huge social contagion, and we are attacking the very most vulnerable amongst us, and that makes my blood boil, because these children need to be protected, not through this funnel.
Right, and taught that it's okay that boys like pink. that doesn't make you a girl.
Well, and how, I mean, so what? He likes a particular color for this day or this week. I mean, children change. And as a grandparent, you've been around the mill, you've watched children, and they'll have some ideas about things, and then that's out the window next week, especially when they get, pre-puberty through to 15, 16, it's a little volatile in the normal family. But these families, my goodness, it becomes just a crazy making for the parents and for the grandparents if they dare to say something about biology. Right. Have you found that?
I've been careful not to push it. When I was talking with him that day, I asked him if he knew that when a scientist digs up, like an archaeologist digs up a skeleton, they can know if it was a man or a woman. And I explained like the bones are different, but I didn't push it too much because he was getting irritated with me. I had more recently asked his older sister about how this was for her. How is it that your brother thinks he's a girl? And she was crushed. She is convinced that her brother's a girl, and that it's a horrible, hateful thing to say that he's a boy.
This is such a cult. This is right. This is exactly what cults do. They change reality.
Yep.
And if anybody brings up facts, details, reality, right, starts to blow all the circuits, and then the cult member and these poor kids, right, become emotionally reactive.
Yes.
Because their world now is being shaken by reality, by facts. And that's why cults have to separate kids from their parents and isolate and limit information. And they do that by kind of us versus them.
Yeah.
And so those are the haters. So whether a religious cult, well, usually it's religious, right? But, we see it a lot, us versus them. They are attacking us. We don't talk to them. Talk about exclusionary.
They want us to isolate them. Yeah, one of the stories is the trans genocide and how people who don't go along want you, they're denying your existence and they want you to die.
And isn't that exactly that's exactly the dynamic that cults create, this hypervigilance. And so it always comes from the top down. This is a narrative that is fed to the young minds. And so here you have these poor kids, right? I know we had Denise on the program. Her daughter gets in the car. Denise, being a mother, she can tell, my daughter is not acting normal. What's going on? And the daughter couldn't help herself. She all of a sudden says, Mom, why do you and Dad want trans people to die?
Right? It's just ridiculous.
Well, and this anger that is flooding out of the children who then move forward on this process and become adults, the anger has been building for so many years, and it's been perpetuated by media, by the school system, by people, other children, their peers. And they are so angry that the lashing out is becoming really, really volatile. And I mean, it's not a good situation because I believe we're going to see more and more violence exploding when these people are challenged with truth. And yet, how can we be still when they're being fed such lies?
Right. And I also wonder about the anger when they realize that every single adult who affirmed them lied to them every single day.
Yvette, so what's a grandparent to do? So you start to find out, or you figure out that something's going on with your grandson, right? And before you know it, you kind of figured out this was your daughter-in-law, who is almost like Jazz Jennings' mother. I'm not going to equate them, but a similar dynamic. Right. You got a kid who behind this child who would be fine if just left alone. Leave the kid alone. Just be a kid. Right. But no, we've got this. Right. We've got this mother that even fast forward into the future now with Jazz's mother is so invasive, she's going to wake Jazz up to shove a dilator in an open wound to make sure it never closes. Talk about enmeshment and just a sick relationship. Poor kid. So you see these warning signs, you see what's going on. Talk to us. So your son is married to this woman.
Yes.
So it's happening to your grandkids and his son. What was that like? What conversations have you had with your son? And what a difficult position to be put in.
It is difficult. I don't have a lot of time with him alone. I have asked in the past, like, okay, is he starting medical treatment? And the answer has been no. To my knowledge, he's not being medically transitioned right now. But he's 11. That's right at the cusp when they would start. I just kind of felt around for where are my openings, and it's all pretty closed. So I can't do anything directly. But what I can do is, of course, love the child. Mm-hmm. I never use pronouns with him. I don't use sex words around him. I'll call him my grandchild or a sibling. So I can stay in my integrity. I can tell the truth. And I'm not stirring the pot in a way that doesn't benefit him. So I like to, make time to be just with him and take him places and do things where we're not talking about gender. We're just having a good time.
That's really wise, Yvette, because that's what I've been saying to grandparents and even parents who are non-affirming. They're caught off guard and they're going, wow, I don't agree with this. But to be able to take that child, get them out of the school system, if at all possible, quickly, and but then take them away all summer, get them away from their peers, get them away from these other people that are influencing them into this idea. And like you said, just love on them, just be a grandparent, just be a parent, and just treat them like you would treat every other child. Go fishing, go camping, do normal stuff. And you know what happens over the course of a couple months? The kid forgets.
Good.
Like I don't need to, like, they're like, oh, why was I doing that anyways? I don't need to be another sex, I can just be who I am.
Okay, so I have to jump in here, guys. I have to jump in here now because I'm the angry parent who's going, what are you talking about? Why are you saying this? Why are you putting this in such a place of, oh, we're going to just pacify this until the fad goes away? Look, that is not a position I would put any parent or grandparent in. If I was a grandparent confronting one of my kids whose kids was doing that, my grandchild, I don't think I'd be as forgiving. I don't think I'd do the things that you're talking about doing. I think I'd be taking them and educating their asses off, every single one of them, from the parent right through to the mom, the dad, and the kid. Because if I don't, I'm not doing my due diligence. While you can sit here and give me a lecture on I have to be polite, I have to be somewhat respectful in their own, creative ways. Listen, this is very cut and dry. And I mean, from a mental health perspective, and I am not a professional. I have the professionals here to do my speaking for me. But I believe that you would agree that you cannot passively let this continue without addressing it on some sort of a level that is going to help you understand from your own perspective whether or not you're getting through to your grandchild. You can't, I wouldn't pat him on the back and it's okay and let's just forget about this and let's go have fun. I mean, yeah, we're going to do that too, but at the same time, there's more that has to be said by a grandparent or even a parent who doesn't agree with a mom. Maybe the mom's pushing it and the dad's going, well, my other son's a hockey player and he wants to do boy things. And she's got my other kid going in this direction. How does the dad communicate with a mom? How does a grandparent communicate with another parent? Listen, if we're going to say to the mom as a grandparent, I'm going to say to my kid, hey, it's okay, just work through this. I know it's tough, and I'm with you all the way, and blah, blah, blah. You know what? I wouldn't have that conversation. That would never come out of my mouth. The anger would be there. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Can you not see what's happening? I brought you up to be better than that. There's man and there's woman. Period. Two sexes, that's it. The rest of this is a bunch of fad nonsense. And I can't let my grandkid go through that without saying these things. I can't let a parent go through this without saying these things. So I have to say it. And I mean, I get what you're saying, but there comes a time when a grandparent has to step up and say enough is enough. And you know what? You're not there to reprimand your grandkid. You're there to reprimand your own flesh and blood child. And if you can't do that properly, man, I know it's going to cause friction. I know that there's going to be a fight to it. I know that there's going to be abrasiveness. COVID and all this bullshit that they're throwing on us all is all part of that. But the reality here is that we can't be passive and not address this from a statement and comments that are needed to be said so that it gets through to these people. I've always said, as a broadcaster, using slang is probably one of the worst or tackiest things you can do. Same thing with comedy. You don't throw, the ones who throw slang into comedy are the ones searching for words to kind of make it better. Well, guess what? You know why people use slang? It's because it gets attention. It gets attention and people go, what did he just say? Or what did she just say? Listen, there's hard conversations that have to be had. And I'm the guy who had those conversations with my wife, my kids, and my parents, my kids' grandparents, because they're almost 80 years old and they don't get any of this. They're not for it. They're not against it. If their grandkid was going through it, they'd probably say, oh, it's okay. Well, you know what? It's not okay anymore. At what point do we step up and get angry? I'm already there. As a grandparent, what have you done now, Yvette?
I know my choice here is I have been very angry and I have been upset about it. And I know if I push in the wrong way, I'll never see him again. And does that benefit this child? And the trauma of losing a grandparent, does that benefit him? Though I absolutely do keep my feelers out for any opportunity where I can start even small. And I hear you. And the nature of cults is that you don't get someone out of the Moonies by saying, this is ridiculous and you're being taken advantage of. Take that silly thing off, because they'll just go deeper into the cult. That'll just be the proof that transphobes want to deny kids' existence and want them to die.
Yeah, what's challenging, and Brad, I appreciate, you have the heart of a dad and a hockey dad, a coach. It's so challenging. That's why we're here, because there isn't a playbook. We're trying to figure out as we go.
That's the interesting part of all of this, and that's why I brought it up. From the perspective that I brought it up from was because I knew that I was going to get a different answer out of you. And there's dads sitting at home like me going, that's right. Ugh. And how do we deal with it? It's not, we're grandparents too. I'm 55. Well, how do I deal with it? How do I get past this? And maybe my approach isn't the right one. Maybe it is. I don't know. That's the point. That's why I brought this attention. That's why I gave it so much energy just now.
I think that what you're saying, Brad, is that it is individual. You know your child, you know your family, you know your parents. And I think as a parent and a grandparent, you know these children. So you have, depending on the personality of the child, you have to kind of gear your response a little bit to that. I mean, I think every parent that's initially assaulted with this "I'm in the wrong body" rhetoric should be absolutely astounded, like just stunned and look stunned and say, what on all earth are you talking about? I think that's a really good place to start, because then it puts it back on the child to say, well, Grandma, this is what I know, and let them tell you all what they know, and then that's when you get to have an opportunity to say, well, this is what I understand to be true. And I mean, you can have a dialogue, and I mean, the issue is you have to take it sentence by sentence, step by step, with these kids that have been, and we're talking about kids who are already socially transitioning, so they're already in this whole mix. I think there's a place for this anger to come. I think there's another place where we aren't pacifying the child, and we're not pacifying the parents that are going along with this. We're drawing a line in the dirt, but we are saying, let's protect this child. Let's spend as much time and have as much influence into their life as possible while we can. Because if we don't do that, especially with grandparents, if we don't take the time to spend time with them, we won't have influence where we need it. So it's really a catch-22 for grandparents, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll just throw this in. Brad, you speak for dads, you speak for granddads, and Yvette, part of this is, we'll say right here, male-female response. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, and let's say if we were in a workshop and somebody were to ask, similar, Brad, to what you asked, how am I supposed to respond? My response is, pray for wisdom, because it really depends. Mm-hmm. Here it is. Can you anticipate how this is going to play out? And is that okay? There's a time and a place where if especially, you're dealing with someone, in Yvette's case, she's dealing with a daughter-in-law. So there's one relationship, one step removed. She doesn't have the leverage. And so could it be that if she says this, boom, the relationship's cut off? There's a time and a place. And so for each grandparent, they're going to have to figure out, how far do I want to take this? Mm-hmm. Is the end game, am I going to be able to help the trajectory by still maintaining a relationship where the child is sent to my home? Or is it that the last words I want my grandkid to hear is, this is a line in the sand. I'm not playing this game. You're a boy. And if you never hear from me again, it's not me that's cut this off. And I want you to know I'm for you. And when you turn 18, come and see me. That's a very individual kind of thing as far as response, because there may be a time where that grandparent, the absence speaks volumes in a very powerful way to a kid. It's just such a hard thing. Yvette, you're living it out right now.
Dr. Ann, you've probably given both Yvette and Dr. Ann have given some really solid advice here today. I think that there's some really good stuff coming out of both of you today that is going to help somebody like me take that step back when needed and take that step forward when needed. And that's part of why I did what I did today on the show, was to provide that two-sidedness of what we're really facing, because you're going to have parents like me and you're going to have grandparents like yourself, Yvette, who are that, let's work through this, but in a different way. I'm more the straight cut. We're gonna tell it like it is. We're gonna say it like it is and mean it like it is. And if you don't get it, then I'm gonna educate you some more after that. The teachers are the ones doing the educating these days, they say, but I tell you what, it's a parent's responsibility first and foremost to take that responsibility on themselves and make sure that they are inclusive with their children in this particular topic. Keep them away from this ideological cult. That's why we're here, is to make sure that you have the verbiage, have the communication, and the ability to speak freely to not only your own kids who are parents themselves now, but also to their grandkids as well. So thank you very much to all of you for being here today. There is so much more to come. John, I'm assuming we're going to do a part 2 to this, because it just doesn't end right there, but we're in a good place to wrap up for today's session, yeah?
That's exactly right. And Yvette is a wealth of knowledge. She has become well acquainted with organizations that are making a difference, and we're going to hear from her how the sources of information and resources. So we're looking forward to that.
Excellent. Thank you again for all of you for being here, Dr. Ann Gillies, as well as John Euler and Yvette Nair. Thank you very much. It's Brad Wilder. It's been a pleasure. We'll have you back here real soon. Thanks for watching Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Euler. You can find us on BitChute. All of our episodes are there. We're also on YouTube now. All of our episodes are starting to be posted there too, and Rumble is on the way as well. So you'll be able to search the internet and find us in multiple locations. You can also see us at home on our website at unmaskingthetransmovement.com. I'm Brad Wilder. Till next time, remember, it's not our kids' fight, it's our fight.